Epik Mellon podcast, conversations with the real humans behind broadband networks, cybersecurity, and the future of communications. Brought to you by QA Cafe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Epik Mellon podcast. My name is Jason Walls from QA Cafe, and I'm here with John Barlow from Consult.Red, and we've been talking a lot behind the scenes about many things that you will now hear. Yeah, it's good. It's going to be a good time. He just started a podcast as well, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that and dive right into things. But first, remember that this podcast is brought to you by the great folks at QA Cafe, and as such, the views expressed by myself or John do not reflect those of QA Cafe or its ownership in a very strongly worded sense. Uh, and it is also brought to you by our three great products at QA Cafe, and that includes CD Router, the industry standard test platform for broadband gateways, Wi-Fi devices, and other customer premises equipment with thousands of pre-designed test cases built by experts and fully automated to work with your CI/CD systems and help you build better products overall. CloudCheck Enterprise, which is our enterprise-grade solution for PCAP analysis across your global organizations that lets you deploy anywhere at any time and lets people make sure they're using all the same tools in all the same way, have standard operating procedures around PCAP analysis, and a whole bunch of other great things that you couldn't necessarily do with the patchwork of open source tools that are out there. And lastly, Packet Viewer, which is the power behind CloudCheck, which lets you put your own packet analysis solution into your cloud managed networking or cybersecurity applications with some really easy code that takes like 5 seconds to do, from what I've heard. All right. Hi, John. Welcome.
Hey, that was some introduction. I like it. I think I need to do some work on my introduction for the podcast.
Well, you know what's funny about that? So it used to be longer, and the feedback I got was like, yeah, now we're just fast forwarding through that part. So that was all on the fly.
I like it.
Yeah. No, so it's been a while. What was it? Purple Summit when we saw each other last time?
Network X? Yeah, I guess Purple Summit Network X last year was probably the last time we properly connected. It was the first time I attended any Purple event, actually, so it was the first for me, and it was good. I liked it. Good set of events.
It's amazing how much it has grown in like just a few short years that they've been doing that summit. It's crazy. They're like, whoops, well, we filled out this venue. I guess we
Yeah, actually, is that the case then? Is that kind of grown to different venues and each time like, we need somewhere bigger, we're going to need more chairs?
Yeah, because the first time it was at Orange, and their facility was beautiful, but it wasn't big enough for the next time. Yeah, cool. So let's dive into this. So Consult.Red does a ton of things, right? It's extremely broad. But so can you talk a little bit about how it is that this focus, like the stuff that you and I deal with, like how you guys sort of got into that and sort of your relation to that too, like how it is that how are you even in this industry?
Maybe I'll try the TLDR version of the Consult.Red history in a few words. So Consult.Red's been around for over 20 years now, founded by 5 engineers. Heritage really in the pay TV space. So a lot of the work we've done in the past and still do today actually is in the pay TV space. There's a natural over time. There's been a natural as operators have added more things to their portfolio, including connectivity. There's been a natural kind of transition to supporting there as well. But really, we're just about supporting connected devices, really. So that, as you said, that's quite broad. So there's a lot that we do cover there. A big focus of that is set-top box. A big focus of that is on broadband CPE. And my introduction to Consult.Red is, it's a really small industry. Everyone kind of knows everyone in the industry. So
I've tried to make that point so many times, but it really is not it's weirdly big and small at the same time, right?
It is. This is it. You see, you go to things like IBC and Network X, and you think, oh man, of all the people that are here, and then look, there's Dave, and it's like that. Yeah, I don't even get that in my hometown sometimes, but you go somewhere like that and you bump into people you know, and I really like it for that, actually. I quite like going to the events and catching up with people, and often you find it's with they have a different badge on this time. Maybe they've moved from one company to the next, but, it's the same people, which is good. I think it's good for the industry, right? It kind of, that knowledge stays there and people aren't exiting the industry with all this great knowledge that they've built up and going to do something else. So we keep the benefits of having that, and then there's new people that are coming in as well. And I think I'm probably in the grand scheme of things maybe quite new to the industry in terms of like going to events. So in my past I was always project focused. So I'd worked for OEMs in my past. So I've worked for Pace, then onto Aris, and then onto Skyworth more recently before joining Red, doing more project delivery of kind of set-top box and gateway projects. And then I really liked having kind of these longer connections with customers that we were working with. And it used to be you deliver a project, you ship the device, and then you move on to the next one. And you might see them if they deploy another product in the future. But I found with things like Android TV, and when you got these connected TV devices where you were having this maintenance phase and you're having to upgrade devices, I was having longer relationships with some of these customers, and I really liked that. It enabled me to build up a good rapport, and it's really, especially for when things go wrong, it's really good to have a good kind of relationship with a customer, right? Because when things go wrong, that's when you really want to lean into that and say, look, we're on top of it. Yes, it didn't go to plan. Trust us. This is, we've worked together. You know how we work. We're not pulling the wool over your eyes and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's incredibly important. And I was doing a lot of delivery. I was, until 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, I kind of wanted to move that to the next level, and moving to more of like an account management type of role made a lot of sense to me, because I could do that for a living, and that's my whole job, which is great.
Right.
And then
it's sort of interesting that shift has sort of happened in general over the last probably 20 years or so, where that's a thing, right? Like customer success is a thing. Right. And like there's literally the people who came up with the concept, but it's also just like, it's like you said, it's really rewarding, right? Because you are working with those people directly, like you are working with them as human beings, and your job really is to make sure that they're successful, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Because if they're successful, then you're successful as a result, because you're working together with them. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's in a nutshell. I guess that's how I ended up at Red, and now I'm having a bit more of a broadband focus, which again I really like. I was thinking about this morning, knowing that we were chatting today, and I was like, how did I actually end up? Did I kind of fall into this, or did it happen deliberately?
Yes.
And I think there was I was looking back, and I was like, you know what I did. So I never went to uni. I never did things in the right order. So I went to school and then college, but never went on to university. I went straight into working, and then did my degree a bit later. So I was working at the same time as studying. And for my main dissertation, actually, that was all about the connected home and IoT. And this was before I was really even involved in the industry. So I was like, oh, you know what? It's just kind of always been there, whether I do it or not. Like, this is always where I was meant to be.
No, it's true. And it's like, I say on the show that a lot of us are in this by accident, but a lot of times it's not, right? Like, it's like when people say, "Oh, you're really lucky to be doing such and such," and I think about like, well, no, there were some really specific choices I made.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true.
When I was a grad student and walking into the broadband forum and happening to raise my hand when I probably shouldn't have, and that just changed the course of my entire career and history. Right, that moment it might not have happened.
It's funny, isn't it? You have like these little moments that are kind of turning points. You don't always know at the time that that's the case. It seems quite minor.
No, when you think back, and it was like kind of seeing the Matrix, right? You're like, whoa, that was that's so burned in my mind that it must have been really important, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. I can point to a few of those where I kind of, exactly as you said, actually, you go, no, that was a deliberate decision I made at that point in time to move in. So yeah, by accident or by design, I think more likely by design, whether we knew it or not at the time is
right.
Yeah, it was always meant to be that way.
Right. But it's like there's an amount of chaos there that I think is the real point behind what it is that I usually talk about our industry, is that it's not that we didn't get into it intentionally, it's that we never imagined that we would get into it intentionally.
Yeah, exactly. And wouldn't it be nice actually if you had the gift of knowing that in advance rather than reflecting
Yeah.
backwards and saying,
Well, I
"Oh,
don't
okay,
know. Maybe I would have done different things and it wouldn't be the same and I wouldn't be having as
yeah,
much fun.
true,
Maybe I would have stuck with programming and had a very, very different life.
yeah." Who knows? We may not be having this conversation in another
Right,
life.
right. Yeah. No, and speaking of which, so you decided to start a podcast too.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you've had done a couple episodes right now. I forgot what the title is.
So it's simply connected, yeah. So
Yeah.
so we've done one episode so far. I interviewed Stu Griffin, who's our CEO at Consult.Red. It was really insightful, actually, and it was the whole point of doing it in the first place. I think for me, I like talking to people. I like, I it's kind of a way of filling the gap between the events when you can speak to people and get out there and have a conversation about, it's
Right.
all like outside of that when you're kind of working on what you need to do, for a living, and have conversations that are focused on that. It allows me to step away a little bit and just go, okay, let's spend an hour. Let's just talk about more generally. Let's spitball what does the future look like and things like that. And it's just, I found it's generated some really interesting like insights and encouraged like Stu in that conversation to maybe think a bit differently. So the second one we're recording tomorrow, which the plan is to do one a month. I've given myself a personal target to do 10 by the end of the year, and we'll see. I'd quite like to do as well like little specials here and there, because you have the events where lots of people are there. Like I want to try and use that to kind of, okay, could I get 10 people talking about this particular thing in a really short form and things like that. So I don't know, just a bit of experimentation, I guess. And, I enjoy the conversations. It's pushing me outside my comfort zone. I like it. It's good. And
And it's tough because it's like while you're simultaneously trying to figure out and fight algorithms and stuff like that, at the same time, for me anyway, when the people who do listen to the show, right, are people that I never would have expected that they would have picked it up, but actually genuinely enjoy it. It's like people do enjoy listening to people talk about the stuff that they're related to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
So I like it. I consume a lot of content, and I think that I saw it as a way of doing my bit to put some back in as well, right, and pay it forward a little bit because everyone has a different view. I don't know. I think there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of people putting content out there, but I think we're in a time now where actually that's really valuable, and people will find the formats that they like. They'll find the people that they like listening to, and will really resonate with the way that they think, and it makes it so much more accessible to consume in that way, because you find and you're like, oh no, actually they've just explained something that this person tried to explain that didn't land well with me for some reason, but actually this resonates really well. So let me find more of that. And I think that's it. Just leans into everyone's intricacies in the way that they consume things.
True. And part of it's, I always think of like almost everything that every idea I've ever had has always been come from something that I wanted. Right. And so for me, it's like the stuff like this. It's like, yes, I drive in a car for 20 minutes. And that is the only time that I have to be able to consume something that, feeds my brain, right? Because I have a 5-year-old. So like, so I'm like, oh, I would want to hear about this stuff. So I'm going to do it.
You're right. I've tried to as well. One thing I've tried to focus on a little bit for me is like my getting some good habits, getting rid of bad habits. And I used to fight, I think exactly as you said, like in those times where you have windows of like, I can't do anything else. I can drive and not like, I don't know. So I think everyone thinks in a different way and some people like to learn. And I think that drive and having 20 minutes of just listening to something and enjoying that a little bit more than if you were just driving without it, I think adds some meaning. And I've
right. I start to look forward to it. Right.
It really is. And I've even one thing I found myself doing recently is on there's a customer I visit quite regularly, and the trip is the same. The routine is always the same, and it's like a couple of hours on the train, and I'll get a chance to do some work. It's uninterrupted time, which is bliss. And then there's a bit on the underground where I can't connect with the outside world, so I'm forced to do something else. So I've been like,
for now,
for now, yeah, true. But I've been forced to. I'm not a reader. I don't read a lot. I like to kind of watch and listen. But I'm not a natural reader. But I've kind of forced myself at that time to just do a bit more reading, and I'm really enjoying it. And as you said, you look forward to those times now because you know, as part of my habit, I'm going to get my book out and I'm going to sit and have maybe 40 minutes of time that I can just focus on this. Everything else doesn't really matter for that time. Right.
I find that on planes too. It's like, even though I hate being on planes, like that's the best part.
It is good. Do you have, I see you have good headphones there. Are they noise cancelling headphones? I know that's a very important.
I actually had this really excellent pair, but they broke and I haven't been able to find another one since. Like, because I don't want things on my head like this because I'm going to try to sleep. And,
yes. I didn't realize how good they were until you take them off. So at first, when I first got on the plane, I'm like, these can't be that good. And I put them on and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can still hear a bit of engine hum and things. Right. But then you take them off and there's like babies crying and like things on fire.
All that stuff I didn't know was going on.
Yeah, but yeah, I know that was my treat to myself when I first started doing a bit more international travel.
The other thing that I've, not to belabor the point about why podcasting is great, but like the other thing that I've really enjoyed about it is it's sort of like a challenge. It's like a screw you to my ADHD. It's like, and so I've like this project, has been like the thing that I've been like, nope, I'm gonna do it every 2 weeks. Don't you skip one, Jason. I know it feels real nice to be able to quit stuff, but like,
yeah. So how many are you up to now? I mean,
this one is gonna be 50. You're the 50th.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, I had stopped counting, but you're the 50th. That's cool.
Nice. I'm gonna put that on my LinkedIn. 50th guest.
Yeah. So let's. I mean, we talked a little bit about the stuff that we want to talk about when, when we do your show.
Yeah.
And diving into the weird world, and some of it I've talked on the show before, but like, just like what are the sort of things that you've come to enjoy about, it's funny that you did your dissertation on IoT and connected home, right? Like you must have already had the interest in it, right? And I know why I like it. I like it because it's this weird sort of like sweet spot of simultaneously being like the user and the producer of the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I was involved in like enterprise networking, I feel like it'd be a lot more boring, but like,
Yeah, I don't know if I can put my finger on that. This might be another juncture in the future that I look back on and go, that was the thing. But no, I think I honestly don't know. I've always kind of been drawn to, I think smart home. I'm very interested in smart home, and I think seeing where that goes beyond. We often talk about going beyond smart to being intelligent, and I think we're in that era now of it being intelligent with like overlaying AI and things like that for it to be. And I think in my mind, kind of at that time, I was like, that's where I'd love to see it go. I'd love to see it, not just like I will tell my light to turn on when I get home, but to see it being like truly autonomous and being able to really be this. I mean, it's quite scary to think, I suppose, if you think about it too long.
It is. But like at the same time, and it comes down to exactly what I just said. It's like 90% of the stuff that I'm interested in because I want that, and I'm tired of it not being
actually,
a thing,
yes,
right?
Yeah, you're right. I'm like, that could make my life easier. Like, well, I should definitely get that stuff.
Like, I don't want to set up my own smart home. I don't want to like do all the installing DIY and try to figure out what products are which and why, and then the plethora of solutions that are out there that all have their own apps and their own solution. I don't want any of that. I want to be able to have it all work right now, tomorrow.
You're right. And yeah, put that way, I think you're right. For me, it's the same thing, actually. I'm like, I would love to have that in my home. That's how I want my home environment to be. So let's make that for everyone so I can get it too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it is, and it is super fun. That's it's like I said, it's like that's the sweet spot for me because it's like it's something, I don't know, maybe it's something that I end up having more control over as a result. But like, it seems to me that like, the other areas of networking have sort of been done, right? They've been kind of not commoditized, but like, it's pretty straightforward how you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, right? And it's
Mm,
new with cloud stuff and with AI stuff. It's a little different. So I mean, that's pretty cool too. But
yeah. And I think for the first time, we're kind of approaching where it's needed. I remember writing this in my dissertation, actually, of like the thing that's missing is the common ecosystem. So all the devices can talk to each other regardless of who owns the device. I remember
right.
that being a part of it. And actually, we're approaching a time, I think, where that might not be necessary. There might be tools in place that just make that the way that they can communicate easier. I mean, it will with standards and things like that, of course, but more of like you won't need to be the Google doesn't need to be all the glue in your smart home, or Amazon doesn't need to be all the glue in your smart home. Those things bridged together by, I think, the pace of change of like how fast the like AI tools are evolving and things will just make that
Well, it's
phenomenally easy.
also the speed and like if we're I can make an equation for this. The speed and the resistance to standardization, right?
Mm,
Because Matter is doing a great job of doing part A of that project, right? A great job, right? It's like the air purifier I have at home already has supports Matter, and I'm like, wow, that was fast, right? Like I I wrote about this a couple weeks ago. It's like people were like trying to how critical articles get a lot of hits, right? So people like to
mhm.
write stuff that's controversial, and people are like, "Whoa, why is
Yeah,
Matter
yeah.
taking so long?" I'm like, "Taking so long? Do you understand how fast this is happening?" It was like it was like 3 years ago. I mean, yeah, Chip was way before that, but you have to understand, like, the speed at which this is being adopted is totally insane. And if you were to put this in the context of the standards, it's very fast. And the
Yeah,
thing
that's
that they're
true.
missing, that you're getting at, the thing they're missing is the other side of it to make it so that the the app you use doesn't matter, right? Because right now the device you buy doesn't matter,
Yeah,
but eventually it has to be so that whatever higher level thing that you want to use is the thing that you can use, and it doesn't matter. But that's been actively resisted, of course, because people want to have or they want to monetize that ecosystem as long as they possibly
of course.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like like they're thinking of their own interests and not of their users, right?
Man, that's just nutty. Who does that? But no, that's a great point though, because I feel like the other reason why I like being where we're at is and the reason why we've at the broadband forum they rebranded the group that I direct as connected user is because I feel like I often feel like when we design stuff, right, especially in networking, like we don't flip it on its head and have the real like psychological use case of the end user, right? you know and it's like no, what is the base level person, right? The 99% of the people who are consuming this service, like what are the things that they care about, and what are the things that they're going to complain about, and what are the things they're going to pay for, right? And it's like you need to think about that first, and some of it is not rational, right?
Hmm. Most of
you
it.
know
In fact,
most of it is not rational, right? And so you have to approach it from that perspective, because that's the reality, and that is not a criticism of the users. Like
no.
it's like I'm that way too, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think that's it. And it's by putting it that way, and it's hard to know, right? Because of exactly that reason. Like everyone has their individual nuance. So like, how can you even begin to capture all of that? But yeah, it's all the 1%, all the one
Yeah.
percent to try and
No, but it's not necessarily even about the edge cases. It's like the other thing that I've noticed is that we, as engineers or quasi engineers in the industry, when we design stuff, very often in standards where I've had people be like, oh well, or they're talking about tier 69 or USP, right? And privacy, there was for a while the sort of like OpenWRT DIY router crowd, right? That was like, well, I never want to turn this on. I don't want my operator controlling my stuff and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, there's like 100 of you, man. Like, we are not the use case.
No. I like that you mentioned that. Actually, I've definitely found myself in conversations before where, and you're right, for that reason, you're like, okay, well, what would I do? Like, that doesn't really matter. Because you're right, because you see it, and I was thinking this about like when things get deployed, and it doesn't occur to me that I see my friends and like, oh, have you seen this cool new thing? I'm like, isn't that 2 years old? Like, oh no, it's just that I was there, like in the when that's being formed and those ideas aren't concrete and known yet. Like,
Right.
there's a big bit in the middle, which is developing it in the first place, and then deploying it, and there's such a gap there that for me, I've already moved on from that and onto what's the next thing that'll be 2 years away from now. And you're right. I think we're not the use case because we're here testing those things now, trying to validate and see where they fit to get it right for the 99% of people that are using this for real.
Right, exactly. And I've always found it interesting. Even I've talked about this before, where like, our industry was consumer first, right? It started with consumer electronics. Even internet access started with a thing that was yours. You did it yourself, right? You dialed into a service, right? And the phone company had nothing to do with that whatsoever, other than you making a phone call. That was it, right? You experienced the entire world. We all got into the internet via a consumer first perspective.
Yep.
Same thing with Wi-Fi, same with all these things. And so, and I see this with mobile too. It's like they're coming up with these names for things and advancing this technology, 5G, 6G, Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 8, and not ever branding or marketing things based on the like to the consumer.
Yeah.
In any way, right? Okay, what does Wi-Fi 7 actually do? Like, what does it do? We know what it does from like a technology and mathematical perspective, but like, what does it do? Right?
You're right. Well, yeah, that's great. Yeah, 5G, but what does it mean? What does it do for me? Like, how's my life better with it?
Right.
Than before,
it's like, have I
situation?
noticed a difference between 5G connections, because who knows if they're actually 5G connections, and LTE? No.
And then to some degree, that's the point, I guess, right? Like, when it iterates, the idea is like, you shouldn't know. Your life is just a bit better, and you maybe don't realize because it hasn't got worse.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. It's in more places. Right.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have a thought and be able to act on that thought anytime at any place.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, for you to know what that thought is before I know about it. Yeah.
Well, that's the next step, right?
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think you're right. And I know there's I found a lot of it's definitely not a criticism of the events and things like that, because it's great and it pulls the people together. But I think use case first and consumer first, of thinking of every problem that we ever address from that perspective, it can be quite quickly forgotten when you're having these kind of deeply technical conversations. And I think always remembering that's the North Star that you need to head for is incredibly important.
It's incredibly important. And it even comes down to like really simple stuff. Cause like, I understand that the things that we build, at least I say we build, let me back way up, because obviously there's stuff I do at QA Cafe and there's stuff I do at Broadband Forum and all that. From the perspective of, let's say, connected home management, right? And monitoring and troubleshooting and service delivery and all that stuff, the people I end up working with the most and through QA Cafe are the people who are servicing the service providers. So the pain points you're hearing are the service providers' pain points, right? And those pain points are, things going down and me getting calls and having to deal with those calls, and it's expensive, right? And or me becoming a dumb pipe and I need additional services to be able to monetize the connection better because that's the way the world is going. And I'm in the best position to do so. And I really should be the operators that are doing this because they're already getting blamed and blah, 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 and all the stuff that we've talked about before. But at no point have I ever heard, and maybe that's okay, about like, why is it that they're getting a call? Right? Yes, it's because their Wi-Fi is not working, but like, what is the experience of that end user that is making them have to cost money? Right?
You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, so we can solve the operator's problem, right? But like, does that solve the user's problem? I don't know. Like,
Well, it's kind of like you're hearing it through the chain, right? When it comes back and
yes.
like, okay, you hear it like, I don't know, maybe third or fourth, depending on the like who's in that chain. Yeah, you hear it a few. Yeah. So there's a few iterations where that message can be lost. So yeah, I think you're right.
Ironically, the telephone game.
Ironically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that I guess the further you are away, the less. So how do you? It's a good problem. It's got my brain churning now, and like how to address that? How do you address making sure that you've always got that as close to that? Because us turning up, knocking on the door of a user, saying, "Hey, so here's what I do for you," and they'll be like, "I have no idea what you're talking about, nor do I care."
Yeah, that's super important though, because the other weird sort of paradox about this is that, and this came up a couple of years ago at Network X, because I was making a joke about how the best network is invisible, right? Because it's just always working and you never see a problem, and right. But there was somebody from I think Verizon who pushed back on that. It was like, yeah, that's the problem, because if nothing ever happens, then the user and this is the weird psychology of it, right? It's like if nothing ever happens, then the user's like, well, what are you doing for me today? Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly that. Yeah, they don't know, and yeah.
Or it's with cybersecurity too, right? It's like if you never get hacked,
So yeah.
how do you know? How does the end user know that you're doing a job for this?
It's a weird. You're right. That is a very weird paradox, man. You get into some very like imagine all the things, and you're right. There's so many things, and we have to assume like the operator knows all they need to know about making sure that the right people are involved and providing those services. And yeah, I guess they're the only voice that matters in a lot of these cases because, like you said, from a user perspective, they just expect to have their device, their point of throat to choke is the operator, and like deliver me my service. And if it's all working, like why am I paying so much for this? I don't even use it. Like you use it every day,
Constantly, all the time.
yeah. Maybe it'd be. There was I can't remember who it was actually, but I saw there was it's quite a nice way of like showing some of these things, and I think some of them are trying to be more prominent. In, like in the companion applications and things like that. Some of them are deliberately trying to do these things now. To like cybersecurity is a good example.
Oh yeah, so right. Did you know that I just stopped like?
Yeah, like well, what did you do? Well, take a look at your app. You see that big red exclamation mark? Click on that and see how many attempted like cyber attacks you had today. Oh. So it's things like that. I think it's so they're trying to like through these value added services and stuff to just present that and make it more visible because you want it to be you want the experience to be invisible, but I think you want the benefits to be visible, right? And it's quite a hard combination to get.
No, and it's weird because we compare it to unfortunately, right, because of the way that it works now that it's always on and that it gets compared to like water. Electricity, right? And in those cases, well, maybe electricity in the US is a little different because like maybe that's actually a great example because it's still a company that's providing that to me, and so that is their best interest to make sure that I know why it's down, how long before it's fixed, and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But like public utilities, they don't care. Like,
yeah, it's true.
It's not they don't care, but that is not the way that I engage with them, right?
No.
As a customer.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. I think you're right. It's how. Yeah, I lost my train of thought there. I was about to go into a big dark hole of.
Oh no, just it's like how do I what am I mad about and who am I blaming, right? And what do I expect to be done about it? But right, broadband is now, I mean, it's probably the most important thing that we have. You know,
You're right. It's more, and it's definitely more commoditized. But at the same time, it's yeah. I don't know. Everyone expects to have it and be connected. Like
Mhm.
it's just you're right. So from that perspective, it's pretty commoditized. At least being connected at all times. But then it's the other stuff that comes with that because you're always connected. There's a lot more that you depend on that for, and you need to make sure it's reliable. You need to make sure that it's safe and that okay, there's no bad actors in there trying to steal all your datas and things.
Right.
So it's trying to add because they want to add that value. Because I guess if you think about your water company, like what are they, in fact, I'm a little bit sore about this one. I don't know what it's like in the US, but I had my water bill through for it renewed like April to March, and I had it come through and it went up by like 33% or something like that. And they were like, "Oh, but we're doing all these great things." I'm like, "Okay, let me read the information." Okay, yeah, not like these feel like all you problems.
Right, right,
Like
right.
I
Can
just
you
want to have
imagine? Can you imagine if a service provider did that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, they do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's usually, I suppose it's a bit easier to quantify. And like, if I think about my work that I've done in the pay TV space, it's a little bit easier because they're like, oh, you've got more content now. Hey, you're getting more sports. We've widened out the Premier League fixtures that you're getting for your subscription, etc. For broadband, because as you say, you want it to be invisible. So where are the features that you're getting with that, and how do you present them to show that they're improving as well? Because cybersecurity is a good example because you say, okay, well you're connected and you're safe, and you go, great, my price has gone up for that offering. Why? You're still safe. The benefit is kind of still from an end user perspective, they're like, but you're just giving me the same thing you gave me
You're
before.
like, wait a
Like,
minute, you're saying I wasn't safe before?
yeah, exactly. You all know you're safe 2.0 now. So yeah, it's like that weird kind of it doesn't. How can the end user comprehend like, okay, cyber resilience is getting more and more complex, and people are getting better and better at getting around that quickly. So you need to invest more to make that the defense for that much better. So things like that, like you need to. Yeah, it's difficult. It is tough. It is really tough.
Yeah. Anyway, that's hopefully as I said, it's like the service providers are our customers. So hopefully between, testing and standards design and all the stuff that you guys do over there at Consult.Red, then, maybe hopefully that's helping.
Yeah, this is it, right? I think that it is our job to help them navigate that from a technical level and understand. We spend a lot of our time on those use cases, and deliberately so, because for exactly that reason, you have to help. Okay, you have to know what pain your end user is really going through, and have a good knowledge of that, and be able to, be able to support that through the technology that we provide and that we support, and it moves at a considerable rate, and there's a lot more people involved in that ecosystem and more going on there. So it changes constantly, and that's kind of what I love about it. Actually, it's
Yeah. Right.
it's not the same. It doesn't look the same from one year to the next. It might feel the same when you're there, but again, when you reflect and you look back and you go, actually, like you said before, wait, hang on a minute. How did my air purifier all of a sudden become matter connected? When did that happen? Yeah, it's wild.
No,
I think a lot about you were saying about the air purifier. I think a lot about the level of like what should be connected and what shouldn't be connected. What is really gimmicky of like connectivity? Do you ever think about that?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I also have a electric kettle,
Oh,
right?
nice.
And it tells me when it's done. I can schedule it. I can change the temperature. It's cool.
I like the idea of like your morning coffee and things like that, right? It's just there. You get up, you know, you've had your shower or whatever, you brush your teeth, go down,
Right.
coffee's ready, brilliant. But yeah, I do wonder for
I feel like it's that there'd be this hilarious comparison of how we imagined it in the 80s, right? Where
yeah,
it's like it was like Doc Brown's like Rube Goldberg machine of automation, right? Or Pee Wee Herman, right? And it's like, well, it's not like that, but it
no,
still works. Now I
yeah.
just needed to crack my eggs and
Over here, what would be the? Do you get Wallace and Gromit over in the States?
oh yes. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
good.
no, great example, right? It's a perfect example.
That's what was good. So maybe that's what got me into the technology. Like, I want to be Wallace one day.
Yeah. I want there to be a boot that kicks me out of bed and like,
Yeah, exactly.
then drops me into my clothes.
One day, the dream is still there.
Yeah. Oh man. Although, so yeah, just talking about like the how our year after year it's different. Like the whole the microservices thing and the app and the appification of the gateway. That's not something that I imagined,
No,
5 years ago. No.
no, you're right, and it's one of the. But again, looking back, you're like, well, it's quite logical, really. It makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Why wouldn't you have those on there? But yeah, I think it's not something I foresaw either. Actually,
That is
but
really funny. That in retrospect, we're like, oh well, duh. Why?
it's like, but you have all these different devices from different suppliers and things like that. How do you manage those? Like, oh, just in a monolithic build, of course. But, but no, it absolutely makes sense. You're right. It was like the very obvious thing that was probably staring us in the face.
That's so great. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited. One of the things I asked in the first episode I did of like, okay, look at what does connectivity look like in 10 years? I'm really interested in that conversation a lot. I think because of putting those two things together, when we were talking about what does your user want and what does their connectivity experience look like from their perspective,
Right.
if you can get
Right.
that, and then what does that look like in 10 years, and see if we can work back from there. But I'm
I know what my
interested
answer
in.
is, and I'll tease it, but I won't give it away so that people like when we're on on your show, we should talk about this because I think it's one of the
Definitely.
things that we really want to hit for. But like the short answer is that in 10 years, I don't want anyone to ever think, because they already don't, but I don't want anyone to ever perceive a difference between being on Wi-Fi and being on mobile, right?
Yeah.
Like, or having a fiber connection or a fixed wireless access connection or any of it doesn't matter. And I want to see that evolve, not just from a technology perspective, but from a cultural perspective in our industry and a psychological perspective from the user, right? It's like, imagine in 10 years that the operator doesn't say anything about the fact that they're fiber,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that
They don't
and
need to,
that's
right?
quite achievable. I think that's not like out of the realm of possibility for the next 10
Right.
years.
And the operator now has the opportunity, right? Because I have a fiber operator and I have AT&T, right, for my phone. Like the operator now has the opportunity to provide that seamless experience the entire time, and you never know. You just get the total package from them, right?
Yeah,
And
I
some
like
people are
it.
already doing it. Some are already doing it, right? So like now that Comcast, Xfinity offers mobile and
Yeah,
all that stuff, and they're doing a good job, but it's still like, oh, I'm getting it from this company, and I don't know. That's my theory.
yeah, that makes sense. I wonder if the conversation about what do you think? Do you think the conversation about speed ever goes away? Because it still seems to be a big factor now.
I hope so. I think people are addicted to it because it's a number, and saying a bigger number is easier.
Yeah, yeah. It does seem like the easy route, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but what does that mean? Again, it's like, okay, that's great. You've given me a really big number. Like, what does that mean?
No, but
what you
it's a
need from
great
me.
opportunity though to do exactly what we were talking about. It's like if you're just giving people a big number, then eventually they're going to be like, "Yeah, well, what have you done for me lately?" Right?
Yeah, yeah. And this is it, right? Like your average user can't put that into context of like, okay, like you or I could say, okay, I have X number of connected devices in my home. Some of them are running video, some of them have got gaming, some of them are lower bandwidth. I could probably work out how much bandwidth I actually need, and it's probably way under what they're offering me.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like at some point it becomes pretty meaningless. I think
Right.
that whole thing, and I think I look forward to a time when that goes away, and then it's the right. Okay, like we said before, it's commoditized now. It's like you expect to have that. You expect to have more bandwidth than you would ever need, and like you say, 10 years time, you expect to have that. You're just always connected. You don't need to worry about who's handling that. It just is.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and then what's the next fight? What's the next thing that everyone's
Well,
battling over?
I think things actually go in cycles too. And if I ever had a dissertation to write, not that I would ever go back to school for any reason other than physics, but uh, it's that. Oh man, I wrote about this like 15 years ago. It's like the definition of broadband is almost it's subjective in relation to the needs of the applications and the available and the
Mm,
available technology, right? So it's like you have broadband when you experience what you just said, right?
yes,
You have
yeah,
broadband when it is far greater than your needs. That's what you
yes.
have. And you don't have it when you don't have that.
I like it. That's a good way of putting it.
And that's how people actually experience it. Maybe eventually it'll swing the other way, but I think there's maybe an upper limit until we start being able to, you know, teleport things,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah, what's the bandwidth of you
you
need
know,
for a human?
for of a transporter beam, you know, it'll
Maybe
get
that's
big.
20 years.
It'll get big before then, but I don't think it'll ever get, you know, so big. It's good.
Yeah,
We're gonna spend another hour talking about this, but it has to do with latency and the use cases and all that stuff. We've talked about that before.
yeah. Interesting times.
All right, dude. Well, thank you for coming on, and yeah, I think we're gonna try and do something real soon, and so you'll see the flip side of this. We'll be on opposite sides of the screen, and maybe
Absolutely.
Paul will
No, I
be
look
there
forward
too.
to it. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
It's been
speaking
fun.
of Paul, right? Because so I think the plan is to have both of us on at the same time. Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we'll have
Yeah.
double guests.
Yeah. So Paul Keeter, for those of you who haven't listened to the episodes with him on it, was in the room. He was in the room when we decided to make this podcast. We were at the Purple Summit in the bar, and he and Joao from Vodafone at the time, but was talking about their field tech experience, right? And the weird situations that they ran into, like when they would go to somebody's house to fix Wi-Fi or whatever. And I was like, we should do a show about this.
I love that. Yeah,
So,
I heard. I think I told you when we spoke before. Like I heard that story when I spoke to you both independently. I was like, oh, okay, this is yeah. And I think it must have been you I've spoken to first. And then I was planning to speak to Paul, and I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that somewhere. Oh yeah, but no, it's like we said before. It's a small old world, and the people move
mhm.
around. I found it very strange that I had those two conversations that close together, which is
Right.
really cool.
So when you see us on John's show, it'll be the two originators of the Epic Mellon podcast.
50
Two of the
episodes
three.
in.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. All right, dude. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, and I will talk to you soon. Everybody else, please do hit subscribe if you haven't done it already, and throw in the comments if you have any questions for John or myself. And above all, own the nerdy things that you love and have fun doing them. Thanks, John.